Hello there, every pony. It's Lotus Moon. I do hope you've been enjoying my readings. This next reading is, well, a pretty sad one. It's called Regret, and it was written by the Bricklayer. Now, the fact that this story centers on Starlight Glimmer, when I first read it, it didn't completely surprise me when I read the description, but then reading everything else, it kinda did. We all have inner demons that we can't escape, but her, well, we'll find out soon. Please enjoy. Regrets. Written by the Bricklayer. Ghosts. We all have a past, Watson. Ghosts. They are the shadows that define our every sunny day. Sherlock Holmes. The Abominable Bride. Starlight sighed to herself as she observed her bedroom and gazed sadly upon a picture of herself and Sunburst smiling as they ate at a diner. She remembered that day and gave out a faint ghost of a smile. Sunburst had suggested she try the Crystal Empire's famed crystalberry pies, part of a way of rekindling the relationship they had long since lost. She smiled softly in remembrance as she flashed back. Crystal Empire. Sunburst, please tell me I didn't just hear you say something completely different than what I thought you said. Starlight gasped in pure outright disbelief at Sunburst's comment of how there was a possibility, a very good possibility, that Starswell the Bearded may have become a crackpot just from his task of training the two royal sisters in their magical abilities. After creating a spell, even if he never finished it, that allowed practically just about any pony to become an alicorn would probably be considered crazy in any pony's book. She was even more amused at the fact that Sunburst, of all ponies, some pony who by all rights should look up to Starswirl, considered him a possible crackpot. Starlight's old friend had even referred to him as such, using that exact term, word for word. Sunburst, are you actually saying, and I quote directly in your own words, Starswirl may have been a crackpot even if he was a genius? Are you seriously actually saying that, given that, he's one of your idols and all? Starlight remarked after she regained the function of speech. Well, I suppose I might be being a bit verbose there, so perhaps the term nitwit might be better, Sunburst remarked after eating a slice of his berry pie. Starlight spat out her drink all over Sunburst's spectacles, unable to believe a word she was hearing. He was a very promising magician, despite all that he said about himself, practically insulting one of the greatest mages to ever live. You do realize what you're saying might be considered blasphemy in certain circles, right? Starlight deadpanned as she took a slice of the berry pie. Sunburst, meanwhile, took off his glasses and rubbed away at them calmly, as if nothing had ever happened, and the two were having a perfectly normal train of conversation. At first, Starlight had been reluctant to even try the pie, but Sunburst had reassured her that the berries themselves weren't actually crystal. Some pony had just added that there to the name to spice it up a little. Wait, you're saying there are actually cults devoted to Starswirl? Sunburst swallowed nervously, nearly choking on his slice in shock. Wouldn't surprise me in the least. After all, Nightmare Moon has codes devoted to her, Starlight replied. Yes, but she was a tyrannical nutjob formed out of a mix of dark magic and jealousy, Sunburst pointed out. Point still stands. She was a powerful magic user, so she must have codes devoted to her, right? Starlight commented. Sunburst raised an eyebrow. By that logic, you yourself must have codes devoted to you, right? Sunburst inquired. Yeah, pretty sure I started my own cult. Starlight grumbled to herself once more, leaving an awkward silence filling the air. Sunburst laughed nervously, realizing he may have stuck his hoof in it. So, flugelhorns. Are they outdated or idiotic or not? He asked nervously, desperately reaching for a subject change. He sighed to himself as Starlight got up and walked out, head hung low. He called after her. What did I do? He yelled and sworn he could have heard Starlight sniffle to herself. Did I say something wrong? Then he remembered Starlight's past and what exactly she had confessed to. With a groan, he slammed his head face first into his pie, smothering his muzzle in it, and muttered, "Now I'm the dimwit." Starlight sighed again and brushed her mane out of her face. Did she really deserve that relationship, or any of the relationships she'd formed? She could list them all, each and every one of them off the top of her head. She mulled over them in her head, listing them off in no real order of importance. Firstly, there were the ponies back in the town she founded. Then there were a few more. Applejack, Sunburst, Trixie, Rarity, Pinkie Pie, no, King Thorax. Gonna have to start getting used to that, Starlight mentally reminded herself. She had to admit she was proud of him. After all, it wasn't just anyone who could dethrone a tyrant and lead a wild race of bright, shining new era. Thorax had definitely grown, a lot more than she had anyways. Next, she could think of Rainbow, Discord. Okay, maybe not him. Not exactly sure if I consider myself friends with him or not, Starlight thought as she continued to get to the bottom of the list. There was Fluttershy, and lastly, Starlight let out a sigh of sadness when she got to this one. Twilight Sparkle, her personal teacher and friend. Don't know if I deserve either of those honors, not after what I've pulled, Starlight mused to herself as she put some toothpaste on her brush. After all, let's recap. What have I done so far? Alright. Make an entire town into my personal slave force. Took away everything that made them individual. Then when Twilight and her merry band of friends tried to stop me, what did I do? Alright. I pretty much stalked her, and at every turn. And then, when I got the chance, stole a spell book and changed history so that Twilight and her friends never even met. It only took, me seeing Equestria turned into an apocalyptic wasteland for me to finally see sense. Yeah. And what was the reason for my little tantrum? Alright, because I thought Sunburst ran off on me while I was a filly. Starlight sighed to herself as she ran a brush through her mane. Twilight herself, an alicorn, says, I'm one of the most powerful magicians in ages, And what do I do with that power? Alright, use and abuse it at every chance I freaking get. I got off scot-free when Twilight took me in, when by all rights I should be thrown in the deepest dungeon Celestia can find, or turned to stone, so that I can never hurt any pony again. Starlight sucked in her breath. Well, time to start the day, she muttered to herself. Starlight went about her day as normal, heading out to the marketplace for her daily shopping. To be honest, she probably should have been thinking about getting her own place sometime soon. But for some reason, she didn't feel ready. If she had did that, that would pretty much finalize the fact that she had graduated from Twilight's teachings. But inwardly, Starlight didn't think she had. As she purchased some grapes from a plum Pegasus with an orange mane, Starlight, as she walked away from the stall, distinctly swore she could have heard the mayor mutter, "Tyrant. Why Twilight took her on as a student is beyond me." Starlight hung her head and sighed as she placed the grapes in her saddlebags. Honestly, that mayor was probably right. As she walked back to Twilight's castle, she passed by Flitter and her sister Cloud Chaser, who gave Starlight a very wide berth. Various ponies whispered about Starlight as she passed them by on, and they and Starlight both knew. She could hear them perfectly. Mad mare. Should be shot. Give her a ride on Spitfire's Digitron, some ponies should. Without wings, the landing will probably hurt real bad. Celestia above. What were the elements thinking when they befriended her? Remember when Discord opened up that portal to another dimension at the Grand Galloping Gala a few years back? Maybe Starlight should travel back in time and ask for Discord to throw her in. And that way we'd all be rid of her for good. Starlight's eyes widened when she heard that last voice. She knew it all too well. I can't believe it. Even Trixie, my supposed best friend, thinks that I'm a danger to every pony around me. The wandering magician's words cut like a knife into her skin. Starlight's eyes began to water as she broke off into a gallop and ran towards the Friendship Castle. Starlight didn't open her eyes or slow herself until she was in the main meeting room of the Friendship Castle. Each of the elements were there. Twilight sat in her chair, forelegs folded, and wearing a rather displeased expression on her face. "Starlight, we need to talk." Rainbow sat back in her chair, placing her back legs on the cutie map and her forelegs behind her head in a relaxed position. Twilight gave her a glare, but was ignored entirely and Rainbow simply rolled her eyes before turning to look at Starlight. We've been doing some thinking and, well... Oh, what's the best way to put this?" she said, and seemingly searched for the most delicate way to phrase her next sentence. Rarity picked up where Rainbow left off. "What Rainbow means to say, but can't work up the courage to put it into words, is... You're dangerous, darling. Simply far too dangerous to live and let be." Pinky and Applejack nodded in agreement as Rarity continued. "Without some measures of restraint, of course, dear. You understand." "Well, we've all been hearing the talk about you by some of the townsfolk, and we got to thinking maybe they have a point," Applejack remarked, at least having the dignity to hide her guilty face with her hat out of shame. "For the record, Chickacube, I'm sorry it had to be this way." Fluttershy seemed to be the only one truly on Starlight's side. girls, she nervously sputtered out. Is all this really necessary? I mean, look at Discord. He's fully reformed. Twilight raised an eyebrow. Funny. Not the way I remember it. Don't you remember him selling all of Equestria out to Tyrek and helping him steal every pony's magic? Twilight posed. And yet, you got this cool castle out of a bargain, Pinkie piped up. Twilight glared venomously at her. After Tyrek blew up my old home, she reminded. And yet he helped save all of us from Queen Chrysalis after she captured every pony, Fluttershy defended. Actually, I think he was only in it to save you, dear. Doubt he really cared about the rest of us. Rarity mused aloud. We're getting off topic here, girls, Twilight reminded. This is about Starlight, not Discord. We can table him for another date. Why not just take away her magic? Rainbow wondered. Even as an earth pony, she'd still be dangerous. Who knows what kind of nasty concoction she could cook up. Don't need a horn for all types of magic, you know. Look going to Coco, if you ask me, Pinkie remarked, twirling a hoof in a circular motion in the classic "she's crazy" gesture. Every pony nodded at Pinkie's point. Starlight gaped in complete and utter shock, unable to form words. And I thought they were all my friends, she thought, her lip quivering. Well, only one thing to do then, Twilight muttered darkly. Her horn glowed, and Starlight found herself freezing up as she began to away in fear. She couldn't believe this. Her supposed friends turning on her right and left. Then Starlight found herself unable to move one of her hooves. She looked and saw that it had been turned to solid stone. Then the granite-like substance began to creep and crawl all over her body at an unnatural rate of speed. Starlight wanted to scream out in terror, but found she couldn't use her vocal cords, as they had already been turned to solid marble. Her last thought before she was solid stone forevermore was, why? Twilight found herself unable to look at the expression of fear and betrayal on Starlight's face and asked herself, did we really do the right thing? Next thing Starlight knew, cold water hit her face and she looked up to see Sunburst standing over her. Are you alright? I found you unconscious at the bottom of the steps. Twilight asked for me as she knew you hadn't been sleeping well. So she thought I could come up with the remedy. So that's all it was? A dream? Just a dream? Starlight thought in relief. It never happened. Are you okay? You don't look well, Sunburst said as Starlight slowly picked herself off the floor. You have a nasty bump on your head. Maybe I should take you to the hospital or something. You might have a concussion. No, I'll be alright. I just need some air, Starlight lied. Starlight didn't know how far she had ran, but she found herself at the edge of a lake, water softly lapping away with the green grass tickling at her hoofs. Starlight sighed again as she looked at her reflection in the glass-like lake. In it, she didn't see herself, but the former Queen Chrysalis who laughed at her. They're right, you know. Dream or no dream, you're really just like me. A tyrannical mad mare, she seemed to mock. Starlight staggered back in shock and disgust before throwing a rock in the water to disrupt its surface and wash the reflection away. I'm not a monster. I'm not, Starlight shouted before asking in a soft whisper. Am I? Just needed some air, huh? Sunburst's wry voice said from behind her, having seen the whole thing for himself. Didn't look that way to me. All right, you caught me. Are you happy now? Starlight snapped. Sunburst shook his head as he trotted up beside her and sat down. Tell me, what's really going on? He asked softly. I've been doing some thinking. Quite a bit of it, actually. Starlight began. Thinking of who I am and what I used to be. A tyrant. But you're not one now, are you? But I could be! Starlight shouted, and Sunburst flinched from the sheer volume of her shout. Starlight felt a wave of guilt wash over her like a tidal wave. I'm sorry. Twilight's right. I haven't been sleeping well. I've been having a reoccurring nightmare. Details are always different, but the basics are always the same, Starlight explained. Ponies always believe I'll slip back into my old ways. The last one was the worst. How so? Sunburst pressed, really concerned for his oldest friend. And so Starlight explained, right down to the very last detail, and how real it had felt. Go on. Tell me that Dream Trixie and Twilight's are right. Go on, betray me too. Tell me I'm nothing more than a mad tyrant who used and abused his power, but got off scot-free every single time. Starlight sobbed, letting the tears flow as she buried her face in her hoofs. Suddenly, she felt a warm presence snuggle up next to her, and Starlight lifted her face from her hoofs. There was Sunburst, foreleg wrapped and stretched around her shoulders in a comforting manner. That will never happen. You repented time and time again. You saved Equestria for crying out loud, Sunburst reassured. The fact that you feel guilty, beating yourself up about it, that alone reassures me. Sociopaths, they don't feel emotion like you do. Now, I'm not a therapist, but I think it's safe to say that you've changed for the better. Starlight smiled as she felt Sunburst's warmth. We should do this more often, Starlight replied, feeling safe and secure in herself for the first time in a very long while. At Sunburst's expression and red face, she covered her mouth with a hoof to hide the giggles. Not cuddle, I mean, just spend more time together. I seem to remember you used to like to fly kites. Sunburst mused aloud, and Starlight smiled. He did remember. Just then, her cutie mark glowed and flashed. Her eyes widened as she knew what this meant. Sunburst smiled. Go for it, he said. But what about Twilight? What if she's calling me to... Starlight swallowed, unable to finish the sentence. I know Twilight. If she had thought you were a danger, she would have stopped you long ago. That's the difference between the real world and that dream of yours. One's fantasy, the other, reality. Sunburst laughed, and Starlight laughed along with him. Yeah, everything was going to be alright. As she ran off, Starlight turned to look back at her old friend. And for the record, flugelhorns are outdated and idiotic. Yep, definitely alright. The end. And that was Regrets, written by the Bricklayer. Do you see what I meant by that, everybody? What I said in the intro? Reading the description, we all knew Starlight had ghosts from her past that she needed to get over. In fact, we did see her make amends for some of the things that she had done. But we all have a ghost in our past that we can't fully escape. They come back to haunt us in all kinds of ways. They eat at us, making us feel worse and worse about any situation that caused them. Just like Princess Luna, and how she used a Tantalus to keep reminding her of her time as Nightmare Moon. A punishment she gave herself to atone for the sins that she could have possibly caused. And the damage that, if left unstopped, would turn into possibly the worst future possible for all of Equestria. What do you think, everypony? Do you have ghosts in your past that you can't escape? I am Lotus Moon, and I want to wish you all a good morning, afternoon, evening, or night wherever you are, everypony. Good night.